Okay guys, we have part 3 to Luke Smith's Director's Cut. We've covered part 1 and part 2 completely. Yes, we're reading this verbatim. And I know there's somebody in here that just wants a summary video. Believe me, we do that for a lot of things. I like to save you guys time. This is not one of those times. There's so many things that can be taken out of context or even just flat out misunderstood if we don't read it verbatim. First up, okay, when I started writing this Director's Cut, I figured it would be an easy couple 1,000-word post. My plan was to rapidly look back at the last 6 months of Destiny 2 and lay out a simple outline of what we want to go this fall. I think I still did that, but I ended up wanting to talk more about why the team and share how we are thinking about Destiny. I remember following games when I was younger and being excited to dig into the messages the developers put together, like to-go's posts on raids and dungeons back in my WoW days, and I loved it, and I love reading those posts. Maybe this was all a love letter to a long-form communication, a relic from a time before it was all hot takes, 140 to 280 character posts, and upvotes. I didn't think this would add up to something longer than almost every paper I wrote in college, but here we are. Before we get to today's programming, I want to circle back on reloader mods and also about mods more generally in Armor this fall, in case you missed my Twitter thoughts. These general mods, which provide the exact same effect as hand cannon reloader, but also affects other small arm weapons, cost 4 to 5 energy depending on the mod, and do not have an elemental affinity associated with them. Again, those are like your global mods. These general mods, of which there are 11, are unlocked for everyone automatically, so you can start to tinker right away. Basically, when you want to specialize your weapon, it requires matching your armor's energy type, and then you get an energy discount on socketing the mod. Okay, that's actually really good right there. The general mods are all global and they're going to be automatically unlocked, so it's not like we're going to go into this with armor pieces that are empty with no real benefit to wearing them. That's great. I'm excited about that. Luke continues, let's finish this series by looking at combat, where the action game and RPG collide, and begin the conversation about the single evolving world portion of our vision. We'll have more on the evolving world later this month after the feeling has returned to my fingers. Combat, the inevitable collision of action and RPG. We want the game to be an awesome power fantasy where challenge can push back on its players. As we discussed in part 1, the game started to bend in year 2 under the weight of this power and Destiny's imperative that it ride the line between action game and RPG. This section is going to explore the collision across a variety of places: the UI, the player character, and of course PvP. Part 1, damage numbers and the 999,000 problem. Destiny 2 was built with very different goals in mind than was much improved of the game we're playing today. Some parts simply weren't meant to last for several years. One of those parts is the display damage values relative to the player's power level. This problem most clearly manifests to players as the frequency of 999,999 showing up in your HUD. As the post-Forsaken year continued, the curve that dictates the value of display damage sharpens into a hockey stick. Display values for Shadowkeep rocket off the graph and become almost vertical. This inflation for damage is getting retooled this fall. It would look like a UI number squish, but more crucially, behind the scenes, we're setting up damage display system to last. It's important that you understand we are not nerfing your outgoing damage. Rather, we're refactoring the display number game-wide. We've also had something that, over the years, the team has come to call the immunity wall. This is a value where players cannot damage AI. In the game today, if you're 50 power below an enemy and you shoot it, you deal a big old donut. Another change we've made for fall is that we've raised the immunity wall to 100. This means you can now deal damage to enemies you're up to 100 power below. The app power you and your enemy are the same power experience isn't changing. This isn't a nerf. This is a way for folks to take on greater challenges by fighting further below the power curve. Alright, so even if you're under level up to 100 power levels, you'll still do damage. But getting back to that 999 or essentially a million damage, the UI would cap out the damage. Now, I'm not sure if it actually capped out the damage. I'm pretty sure we were hitting harder than 999,999, but the UI display was only showing that value, which kind of made us question at times, was this loadout better than that loadout? So having the UI actually reflect the numbers that we are actually hitting, I'm all for that. Part 2, buffs, debuffs, and stacking rules. You know it, I know it, and Glad knows it. The way damage stacking works in the game right now is busted. Multiplicative damage combined with the exponential damage inflation above the send damage numbers to soaring heights of we cannot continue this way. We've taken all the weapon damage buffs. These enhance the player's outgoing damage. They can appear on the the character and stack rank their damage effects. These are the effects like Empowering Rift, Well of Radiance, Lumina buff, Top Tree Void Titan's Weapon of Light. We've also overhauled the system under the hood so the damage calculations use only the most powerful buff on a player at a given time. It's got a nuance to it, though. If you're under the damage effect of something stronger than Well of Radiance, you will still receive the healing effect of the well, but the damage bonus would come from another buff. So for example, Lumina or Weapons of Light. Wow, that's huge right here, guys. You will not be able to, if I'm getting this right, we're not going to be able to stack buffs together. We've made some changes to debuffs as well. A debuff is an effect that weakens the enemy. We've touched the effects and durations of a number of them. These effects include Hammer Strike, Shattering Strike, Tractor Cannon, and Shadow Shot. Shadow Shot will now work on powerful weapons as well. Oh wow, okay. In general, only one ability buff can be active on a player at a given time, and enemies can be affected by only one debuff at a time. There are notable exceptions in the form of exotics and weapon amplification perks, kill clip, rampage, etc. The exotics and weapon amplification perks will remain multiplicative increases to damage above the ability buff values. Here's a simple version. Buffs that apply to a single weapon, rampage, kill clip, exotics can still stack, but buffs that affect all your weapons no longer stack. The most powerful of those buffs will be applied to your damage. I'm sure someone is going to make a video that shows this in action on October 1st. Alright, this is huge news. This changes so much, and is also going to change the loadout of raid teams. If Weapons of Light is going to be a higher damage buff than Well of Radiance, then what's the point of using Well of Radiance? I know Well of Radiance keeps you alive, and that's beneficial, yes, but you can also have your fire team dipping back and forth into the bubble with Saint 14 helmet, giving everyone an overshield, and simultaneously giving them a Weapons of Light buff. Essentially though, guys, one buff and one debuff are the only two things that are going to be applied to things we are trying to kill and take down. Outside of, again, weapon perks, exotics. If you think of something like Izanagi's Burden, obviously you're still going to get the damage buff from that exotic weapon, which will also stack multiplicatively with our buffs. Okay, this is going to take a lot of testing on our part. We're honestly going to get damage values like right now on Greg with certain buffs and then certain stack buffs, and then see what it looks like on October 1st. Moving on though to part 3, supers everywhere. Masterwork guns, super mods, orbs everywhere. Right now, for a pretty decent player running super mods, the time it takes to gain a super is under 2 minutes in PvP. If you compare the duration and damage of roaming supers in Destiny 2 to roaming supers in Destiny 1, you'll see they're more powerful now than ever before, and they are. We didn't even have a roaming Art Titan in Destiny 1, but every time I play PvP, I get killed by one twice in the same super. Similar to the way that deep down we all know the damage dealing capabilities of Guardians has gotten out of control. We know the supers have too. Destiny 2 was overly restrictive at launch, but now the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction. We'll start bringing this back toward the center in Shadowkeep. On a live stream a couple months ago, I mentioned that we're lowering roaming super damage resistance, and we are. Seeing someone pop a super should not instinctively make us want to run away, give up, or float off the map. We want super kills to feel earned, and we want players on the business end of the super to feel like they can make a big play and put down that striker titan. Being able to challenge someone in their super is important, and right now many of the supers are very, very hard to challenge. On top of that, more things than ever now contribute to players getting their supers back, so we're doing some tuning there as well. Supers would be just as powerful, but they would be more strategic choice. As such, we're reducing the effectiveness of orbs on refilling the super meter and reducing the super energy gained from kills and assists. This isn't just a PvP problem. Remember the series on Reckoning in part 1? It's all related. Supers are still very, very powerful in the PvE game. Players would just need to be slightly more specific with their timing and positioning than in the past. This kind of tuning is a pendulum. We swung it hard in different directions, and we'll all hope that these changes will begin to find a better middle ground for Destiny 2. I know you'll let us know your thoughts once you've played it in the fall. Alright, that's pretty much Luke's way of saying don't freak out right now. But I'm gonna be honest with you. Resistance being brought down in PvP, at least to the point where you can either actively team shot that super coming straight at you, or better yet, if you happen to land a sniper shot and it's a crit shot, you should get the kill. But I am surprised that they're lowering the super regeneration quality of our orbs. That's a big surprise. I kind of thought they would go more for the mods first before hitting our orbs. We really don't know how much this affects us. Lethality wise, it seems like our super super is going to be good, if not better, considering we're also going to get buffs in some of our other subclasses. And if Solar Week does come to fruition, then again, we've got more buffs coming. You're just going to have less resistance now, as well as less super regeneration from orbs, for both PvP and for PvE. Wow, okay. Part 4, heavy ammo available. In Destiny 1, heavy ammo became an in-match rally point in 6v6 matches. Once open, players nearby would all get some heavy ammo. In Destiny 2, heavy ammo is a jockey for position speed before need looting game that gets played all the time. In Destiny 1, heavy ammo felt metered, and in Destiny 2, you can defeat a team, but not an Arc Titan, multiple times with a brick for a hammerhead. See where this is heading? We're making some changes to heavy ammo in Destiny 2. Heavy ammo will be communal in 6v6 playlists. We'll also reduce the amount of ammo per brick in PvP for certain 6v6 archetypes. It's not exactly the same as D1 though. When a player cracks open a heavy crate, other players have a window of time to interact with it to get their heavy ammo. Alright, I don't even know. I mean, there's nothing specific being said how this is going to go. It's communal in 6v6. I guess my question is more, what is the frequency of heavy ammo being available? Is it going to be a one-time use like it was back in D1 for either side? Luke says it's not going to be the same as D1 though, so I don't know. Maybe twice? Maybe it differs depending on the playlist. Maybe comp is completely different as well. I hope this has been play tested. Part 5, let's talk about PvP. There's also been a lot of conversation internally and externally at different points during the year around the support Bungie provides PvP. On one hand, we've continued to tune the game each quarter, added Pinnacle PvP weapons that somehow ended up as Pinnacle PvE weapons, tried out ranking system in the Crucible, and returned the game to its 6v6 roots. On the other hand, we haven't released a new permanent game mode. Many game modes from Destiny 1 are nowhere to be seen. There isn't public-facing PvP team. And the last real thing we said was Trials is staying on hiatus indefinitely. Let's get some of this sorted out. Trials of the Nine wasn't the hero we wanted it to be. We made too many changes to a formula that, while it had begun to decline in Destiny 1, wasn't as flawed as we thought. When we were making Destiny 2, we talked a lot about making sure it felt like a sequel, bringing in new players, simplifying the game, and Trials of the Nine created another casualty there. It happened on my watch, and if I could turn back time, I'd challenge us to do many things differently. If nothing else, I hope it's clear we're committed to learning from the mistakes we make and making it right. There are some really cool parts to the Emissary. Some of the gear was pretty potent, sup Darkest before, but the theme felt weaker. The Trials card was less important, and the stakes felt lower. Trials of the Nine didn't work the way we'd hoped, and Trials of the Nine is on hiatus indefinitely. So why have we been so quiet about PvP? Well, we didn't have a lot to say. We weren't actively developing something to hype up. We knew PvP was going to get something everyone got for free in New Light, so it wasn't really a part of a Shadowkeep core offering. What are we doing about PvP became a question we were asked internally too. A bunch of folks on our team are passionate about PvP and wanted to know where it was heading. PvP is in need of some quality of life improvements and restructuring. This fall with New Light, hopefully bringing a bunch of new folks into Destiny, and with our existing players looking for some updates to PvP, we would start by making significant changes to the PvP portion of the director. Today, it's a fine balance between adding playlists, maintaining healthy populations when we're looking at changes to a playlist structures. We want to achieve a couple of goals. First, we want players to have some more agency with respect to pick a playlist, play a mode, and second, we want the playlist to drift back to the everything is a factor of 3 that Destiny 1 used and that the rest of the game mostly uses. Player counts being based on common number like 3 is important. It enables a bunch of activity options for groups or friends to engage with. In Destiny 1, players could run a couple strike groups, team up for a raid, go play 6v6 PvP, split up, go play 3v3 PvP, etc. At launch, Destiny 2's 4v4 PvP completely broke this pattern, and we want to reset that bone with PvP this fall. We revised the playlist a lot, and here's how it's going to work. We removed the quick play and competitive nodes from the director. If you're looking for an experience like quick play, we've added Classic Mix, a connection-based playlist like quick play today. Classic Mix includes Control, Clash, and Supremacy. Competitive is replaced by 3v3 Survival, which now awards glory. We've also added a Survival Solo Queue playlist that also awards glory. Oh wow, that's crazy, man. Both of those things are crazy. 3v3 Survival and a Lone Wolf playlist. Okay then, we've added 6v6 Control as its own playlist. With the potential influx of new players this fall, we want to have a playlist that signals to new players that this is where to start. We felt like 6v6 Control is the right right starting place when introducing new friends to Destiny. We've added a weekly 6v6 rotator and a weekly 4v4 rotator. These rotator playlists are where modes like Class, Supremacy, Mayhem, Lockdown, and Countdown will appear. We removed some underperforming maps from matchmaking too. Alright, before we move on, this is kind of like how it was, year 3 in Destiny? You had your classic playlists, and then you had the new and improved playlists, I guess you could say, with like the new maps. So I'm assuming the return of something like Widow's Court as well as Twilight Gap will not be available in Classic Mix. That will most likely only be available in the new playlist here that they're structuring. I think the biggest changes here is, of course, 3v3 survival. So competitively, Bungie is returning back to 3v3. And then the other big change for solo players specifically that want to just go up against other solo players, that is incredible. Now moving on, we've also been working on 4 variants of 3v3 elimination. They include different approaches to revives, token resurrections or not, and variations on how heavy ammo works. Elimination is going to make its return in Crucible Labs. However, Elimination is very much unfinished. It's missing VO, and there are no unique medals associated with it. Between the missing polish and the 4 variants, we like your feedback on Elimination. For the time being, is a great fit for Crucible Labs. We fully expect it to graduate out of Labs and find a warmer home. We wanted to make sure we could test Elimination on some familiar maps, so we brought back Widow's Court and Twilight Gap. Voila, we just talked about it. We want to play with you and watch you play Elimination in its combat sandbox and see how it all fits together. We're also changing how we do matchmaking. With a bunch of potential new players entering Destiny via new light, we don't want PvP to feel like you're being told it's time to learn to swim as the helicopter door opens over the Pacific Ocean. So we made some changes to separate the new swimmers from the Olympians. Additionally, we've also taken a longer look at matchmaking and overhauled the skill matching system. In the game today, Quick Play is the only playlist that doesn't have some version of skill matching in the game. We're preserving that behavior, connection matchmaking, in the 6v6 classic playlists. Here's what gets really annoying about skill matchmaking. When it's overall restrictive, it's fatiguing when every single game feels like a sweat fest. When it's overly loose, a player can get an entire evening of unlucky matchmaking RNG where they're getting dumped on by squads of Terminators shredding kindergartens. A bad time for the kindergartens. There's much more complexity and nuance to an evening of PvP than those 2 statements above, but they do accurately capture the core problem. A lack of match-to-match variety. Sure, for a bunch of Terminators, a night of stomping might be a blast, but what about the folks on the receiving end of the business? This is where it gets tricky to improve matchmaking. People generally tend to focus on their own experience and their feedback. We think a variety across an evening of PvP is important. This fall, skill match should ensure a wide variety of matches regardless of player's skill. Some matches should be tense and thrilling, while other matches should be stomps. This philosophy should also apply to top players, so they don't feel like every match is a sweat show either. We refactor how players gain glory ranks with these skill match changes. We're factoring in your skill value to glory gains and losses so that the number can more effectively represent skill. We've also made a number of quality of life changes to glory, valor, infamy to make losses less punishing to your streaks. Once the above changes go live in October, we'll be watching, listening, and reading as you check them out. Alright boys, we're gonna be here for a second because I know a lot of information is being thrown at us. Let's lay it out real quickly. First up, skill-based matchmaking is 100% returning to every playlist but the 6v6 classic mix playlist. So if you like the way matchmaking is for you right now, which is predominantly connection based, you're gonna want to go play classic. Now here's how they get you. If you want to play the new maps, obviously you're gonna want to play the new playlist, which therefore will put you in skill-based matchmaking. Now honestly, skill-based matchmaking, I get it. Obviously new players that are coming in that have never shot a gun inside of Destiny, and we're talking about guys that are like literally picking this up on Steam and going, hey, I'm gonna try out this new game. Going in there and just absolutely shitting on those guys is not gonna make them want to play the game longer. Trust me. They'll be like, yo, the hell with this, and then they're out. I get that, which is why I'm all for protecting new kindergartens coming into the game. But there was a time inside of Destiny 1 where the threshold for skill-based matchmaking became way too strict. So instead of matching people up that are between, I don't know, 1 KD or less, and then 1 KD to 2 KD, instead Bungie would do it like in 0.25 intervals. So if you got a 1.0, you can match people between either 0.75 or 1.25. Now that sounds fair, but ultimately what ends up happening is at the end of the game, everyone's looking at a 1.0 KD. You're all fighting the same people, and yes, it does get fatiguing very, very quickly. Every game became a sweat fest, but not only did it become a sweat fest, it actually did the opposite and pushed players to form teams, and pub stopping became way more rampant back in Destiny 1. You saw them, I saw them, we went against them a number of times. You know the guys that regularly pub stomp, and a lot of them regularly pub stomp because they didn't want to sweat their balls off. Not only is this concerning to me, but also the refactoring of glory ranks with these skill match changes. Correct me if I'm wrong, glory should only be glory-based matchmaking. If I have 1,000 rank, I should be matching people, I don't know, 500 intervals. So between 500 rank and 1,500, that's the way it should be. But having some sort of skill-based matchmaking inside of a playlist that already has a ranking system, but then adjusting the amount of rank you gain based on your skill levels, my lord, I can only imagine what kind of equation that is. Will it be fair? Maybe. What won't be fair is when you're going up against account recoveries that are rocking very low stats and they're running a full stack inside a competitive, and you beat those guys and you only get, what, 5 points maybe? That's the other side of things. It's a double-edged sword, because Bungie doesn't look at those guys and go, oh, those are account recoveries, those are really good players that do recoveries every single day, and they're top-notch players, and this is what they do for their living. No, what they see is just Joe Blow, who's only stepped inside of Crucible once, and you just spent the last 2-3 games matching these assholes with nothing to show for it. Obviously, this is the worst case scenario. I don't really like any of this conversation here. I am not a fan of this post. I'm also not a fan that Trials is still getting the same hiatus bullshit. I had a feeling that Elimination was going to be thrown in first, and yes, there was going to be different modes of elimination to kind of just narrow down exactly what type of elimination needs to be present when Trials does re-emerge. But I made a very depressing video 8 months ago saying that Trials will probably never return in Destiny 2. I'm gonna be honest with you, when I made the video, I was 50-50 with it. I thought maybe it'll never return, but there's also a good chance that it can return. A flip of a coin. Now I'm really starting to lean toward Trials really is never going to come back. The fact that Elimination wasn't even talked about in depth in this post. The fact that they're sticking it inside of Crucible Labs, which in Bungie's defense, we were already told this, but come on, Crucible Labs, look how many people are actually playing that damn playlist. And the fact that Luke admitted that Elimination is very much unfinished pretty much confirms to me that if Trials is on the to-do list, it is last, boys. It is very much last. Second page last. Hell, better yet, it's on the back. I'm not a fan of this. I'm not a fan of this post. I know there needed to be some playlist restructuring. I understand skill-based matchmaking. I do not understand how you can introduce skill-based matchmaking inside of glory ranks when that is the ranking there that should be justifying who you matchmake. And I'm also not a fan that Elimination is just kind of casually being thrown out there, as well as Trials still getting the same hiatus indefinitely answer. This is not good. I am not a fan. All right, let us continue. We still got some more of this post. An evolving world. There's an aspirational vision for what evolving could mean for Destiny. Someday, Destiny could become a dynamic world where the world changes each season. We want to play Destiny to feel like you're playing in a game world with true momentum. A universe that is going somewhere. A game where things are happening. Not just in terms of new items and activities, but also in terms of narrative. It frequently seemed like Destiny was treading water in terms of moving the world's narrative forward. We want to tackle this in Destiny 2's third year. During Season 8, a new situation will unfold on the moon, and I'm being cagey here only because I'm reluctant to spoil anything. Over the course of the season, parts of the game will change before the situation culminates, an event that will ultimately resolve it, and its content will be exhausted. But this resolution sets up the events of Season 9. Which again adds something new to the game and resolves it. Something too will go away, but not before setting up Season 10, etc. This differs from last year's annual pass, which permanently added activities to the game. This year we'll see events that last for 3 months, offer new rewards to chase, although at the end of the period, some of the activities will go away. For a time, the rewards will too. But we also acknowledge that part of playing Destiny is collecting all of this stuff. So in the future seasons, the weapons and legendary armor associated with these seasonal activities will be added to the reward sites. I alluded to some of this when we were looking back. The game will continue to grow forever. Isn't something we can support. Destiny, simulation, fidelity, architecture fundamentally make it a big game. I've seen a lot of Game X does it, why can't Destiny? But the reference games and ours have very different technical profiles. Technical limitations aside, we also don't think making a game that grows forever is Destiny's path forward. It's why the second component of the vision is a single evolving world. To clarify, that single evolving world doesn't mean there's only one destination on the director. That's not where we're heading. You were there with your friends, got the gear and weapons to remember it by, made the memories, and changed alongside Destiny. In late August, we're going to talk more about the annual pass and how it's going to continue to evolve. All right, so what they're getting from that, guys, I mean, this is the reality. Destiny is a ginormous freaking game, and I'm not talking about in terms of scope. I'm talking about literal size, the data size of Destiny. How many gigs are we at? At least 100, right? And that's only going to get larger coming this fall. The issue is all of these past things: Black Armory, Season of the Drifter, Gambit Prime, Season of Opulence, Menagerie. All of those things take up space, and it's definitely been something Bungie has pointed to in the past that they're going to have to start limiting because the game is getting too large. I'm all for the game evolving. I'm all for a game signing into a new season and it looks completely different. And you know, you are sitting in the season of the Drifter, in the season of Opulence, because everything is showing you are in that season. And then, of course, the game changing, especially physically, when certain things happening on the level of something like Dreaming City. That was incredible. But this also puts up limitations for players and the time duration you have to get things done. If you want to get things now, you're going to want to play in that season to lock in whatever rewards are for that season. Now, I know he did mention that the weapons and legendary armor associated with that season will be added to other reward sites, but then again, that increases that RNG pool of armor and weapons. So if you want to specifically go after those things, participating in that season will be your best bet. Now, closing time. If you made it this far, thanks. I think I could probably write another 10,000 words about this game. This fall is my 9th working on Destiny, and at times, it felt way longer than 9 years. There have been dark, dark days for you, for us here, and certainly for me. But this year has been special. It's been a lot of fun talking with you all and getting to try some different things. Whether they are a stream where I turned up unshowered because my hot water went out that morning, of yep, or a Twitter promise that turned into way too many words, this. The Bungie team has worked incredibly hard, and we're excited to get Shadowkeep onto your hard drives in October. Big thanks to them for their hard work and also for helping me put this together on a comically tight timeline. Many emails and work-related IMs were sent during the construction of this message. Thanks for playing, reading, and being part of this community. See you soon, Luke Smith. All right, guys, that's pretty much it, man. I gave my thoughts after each topic. I've covered every one of these from start to finish. We haven't overlooked them. We've read them verbatim. I've got an understanding pretty much of everything. If you stuck it out with me through each one of these videos, thank you. And to the guy that's sitting there in my comment section right now saying, why don't you just summarize? Fuck off. I want to hear your shit right now. I've done more reading now than I have in like 10 years. You think I like reading about trials being squashed to nothing? No! But it is what it is. I'll be collecting my thoughts here in the next few days, guys. We're going to talk about trials in more depth, elimination playlists. I'm gonna scour the internet a little more, see, I don't know, maybe we got a screenshot of what the new playlists are gonna be looking like. Also, I want to make sure that my understanding of glory ranks and how you matchmake with opponents is correct before I really get into rant mode. But we may be looking at a rant here soon. Fellas and ladies, thank you so much for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.